Hey, what's up YouTube? Today I'm going to talk about the grip on the Nikon ZF. Expect a full review of the camera, real world review of the camera from weddings and family sessions very shortly. I have a few sessions that I still need to edit, but I want to include a bunch of photos and kind of deep dive into the files, into my favorite lens for it. At least I own two lenses. I use the 28 2.8, which I kind of use here and there, but primarily use the 40 f2. And I'd like to talk about that lens, where this camera fits into my wedding gear, using it as a family camera, that kind of stuff. I definitely will do a deep dive in that. I have a few videos planned about why I chose this camera, where it compares again to my wedding kit, and where I'd like to see the future of the Nikon Z system go, the Canon R system. But yeah, I'm very pleased with this camera. The files are incredible. It's definitely sticking around. I absolutely love this camera. But yes, today we're going to be talking about the grip on the body, as well as this grip, the SmallRig grip. So, and I have some thoughts. So yeah, when I first got the camera, I, like many others, realized how heavy it was. And it's not unwieldy, but you can definitely feel a heft to it, especially if you've held some of the Fuji cameras, the Fuji retro style cameras. But I've come up with a system on how to hold it. So this is how I hold this camera. I'm not a strap guy. I prefer straps that go down to the tripod plate, and I do have one that I love and that I will make a video on. But usually I'm not a strap guy. So I would hold this camera with my hand kind of angled down, finger on the shutter button. I can adjust the dials this way. I can press this is my ISO, I can press that button here. And then I can support with my pinky and with my other hand. It's not ideal, but like, I love the retro styling. I love these types of cameras. So with this grip, I'm pretty happy. The fatiguing aspects come from when holding it long periods of time. So for me, if I'm just holding it or whatever, kind of holding it like that, and where it gets fatiguing is you're pressing on the front to hold it with a little bit of security, or you're pushing on the back with your thumb for a little bit of security. If I can do that. So like, just like that. You're kind of pushing down with your thumb or pressing in on the front to kind of hold it a little securely, should you not be dangling it on a strap. So for me, when I'm actively shooting, I'm cradling the lens. I usually hold my cameras like this. I'm cradling the lens and I'm pressing and I'm firing away, whatever. So that's how I would hold this camera. But I think that having the third-party grip, or like the extended grip on it, is important, especially when you're traveling or shooting for long periods of time. That was kind of my impetus to getting this grip. So I bought it. I think it was like $60 Canadian, which is a reasonable price. Like, I think it's a good grip. Obviously, I think it's like $40 American, which would in Canadian would be nice. But yeah, so here's the grip on it. And as you can see, it kind of adjusts my grip a bit. And when I first held the grip on the camera, I did notice that it felt a little awkward, and I was like, do I like this? But it's just a simple grip adjustment. So as opposed to holding it like this, I shift my hand down and I'm holding it like that. And I shot a whole day of Santa family photos for a local charity, and I shot about an hour and a half of cocktail photos with this camera exclusively, and I absolutely loved it. And I found that the SmallRig grip was key in those moments to reduce fatigue, to kind of dangle my camera like this, and to just in general have a little bit more meat to grab onto. I found that in those instances, when I was shooting for long periods of time, when I just needed to kind of relax my hand a bit while keeping my camera on the ready, having the grip on was critical and absolutely worth purchasing for that reason. I'm not always going to use a grip. If I'm traveling, I may bring it along and maybe not put it on. For family stuff, I don't mind having the grip off. But in particular, if I'm going to use it for long periods of time and I need my camera at the ready, having the grip on is worthwhile to me. So a few other things about the grip. the one in particular is the difference in the leatherettes. So as you can tell, the Nikon leatherette's a little bit of a thicker grained, whereas the SmallRig grip is a little less thicker grained. Kind of wish they would have coordinated that a little better, just for aesthetics. But to be quite honest, the leatherette on the SmallRig grip is a little softer and a little more rubbery, and provides a little bit more gripability compared to the body of the Nikon, which the leatherette feels harder, feels smoother, and it doesn't have that like grippy texture of rubber. I don't know what the material is of the leatherette, but it certainly feels slippery, and something I hope that they adjust in the future. I'd like to be a little bit more rubbery, like the other mirrorless cameras going around, like the Canons, and I think the Z6s have a little bit of a more rubbery grip. Like surely they can make this leatherette style with a little bit more grippiness to it. But yeah, the differences in leatherette's a little bit awkward. That's probably the most notable thing about appearance, but other than that, feels good. The only other thing I'd like to note is the placement of the command dials, or the front command dial on the Nikon ZF. It becomes a little tight when you put this grip on. Someone with larger hands like myself, thicker fingers, like getting to that, it's certainly tight right there. And when I was adjusting aperture very quickly for the Santa photos, I did find that the crampedness of the dial was a little bit annoying, and the fact that the dial for aesthetic reasons doesn't protrude that much really doesn't give you a good kind of finger on to the dial. So yeah, like, and I know why the dial's placed there, because as opposed to cutting a hole in the top plate, like I think the Fuji XT30 the 30-20 lines, like they have that hole cut in there. I'd imagine it's a little cheaper just to notch out the bottom of the top plate as opposed to having a hole cut in it. So the dial has to sit where it sits. The only problem is the grip from both the body and the SmallRig grip kind of crowds out the command dial for those of us who use the command dial to adjust aperture. I guess everybody would use that to adjust aperture, but I'm a command dial person. I only use the top dials if I'm a little bit slower, if I'm just kind of shooting at a leisurely pace, I'll use the top dials, but for the most part I'm using the command dials to change my exposure. So yeah, I think that's maybe the biggest downside of the grip, is the crampedness of the command dial. But for wedding shooters, for family sessions, that kind of stuff, I'd imagine you want to have the grip on, because for me, if I'm using a 1.8 f2 lens, the chances of me switching the aperture on that is pretty minimal. I'm only generally switching to 2.8 f4 if I'm doing group photos with multiple layers. So other than that, it's likely like I'm shooting completely at f2 or like the lowest aperture possible. With the 28 2.8, I would almost never remove that off 2.8. So it's a little irrelevant to me, but certainly notable for others. So yeah, long story short, worth purchasing, especially if you're going to use the camera for long periods of time. I like the ability to take it on and off, not have it built into the camera. That's always key to me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it gave you some insight about the grip and helped you make a purchase either on the ergonomics of the ZF or the ergonomics of the SmallRig grip. So yeah, until next time, talk to you later. Bye.